Welcome to the HR Fix, the HR podcast for HR professionals who want to grow and be the best. I'm Judith Fiddler and I'll be your host. So come and join us on our journey as we change an entire industry. Come on, let's get started. COVID HR is something that I want to talk about to use the fact or to explain the fact how HR is broken and where we are. And it's really interesting that we're now a few years on from COVID, 3-4 years down the line, and we can look back and we can see the lessons and we can see how people reacted and we can see how we can apply that to HR matters going forward. And I find that really interesting. It's a really good explanation of what we need to be doing and how we need to be adapting. Let's just firstly look at sort of pre-COVID and what the state of HR was and where we were up to. Remember, the Equality Act was 2010, so that only came in then. And that's what we first really learned about protected characteristics. So before that, we were talking about equality. So we had the Sex Discrimination Act, we had the Race Discrimination Act, Race Relations Act even. So we did have issue. We did understand what discrimination was. I'm not saying that 2010 was the first time that discrimination came in, but it was the first time we had the protected characteristics. It was the first time we were aware of it. It was the first time we were learning it. It was the first time we had this brand new piece of legislation, this 2010 piece of legislation. But the state of the HR world at that time was very much that there was fixed mindset and there was growth mindset. And those people who had a fixed mindset were very of the opinion, processors, what I'm calling consistency queens, templates, you do what you've always done. If there's someone who's late, this is what you do. If there's someone who's fighting, this is what you do. Someone who's off sick. We had the Bradford factor. That was a big thing that came in. And that was all to do with triggers. If you're off, work sick for this amount of time, with this many absences, at this point, we do this calculation and this is what it is. There was a huge lack of individuality. We would never take on board individual circumstances, individual cases, and apply different rules for them. That's very much the state of the I'm calling pre-COVID. So that's pre-2020. Then comes along COVID. COVID, we had no warning. We didn't know what was going on. There was no training courses. We had to act quickly as a HR profession. And really, that was the time that we were called upon, I would say even more so than ever before in our history, that there was issues that affected HR. We needed to be there. These were people issues and we were on the front line. So whether it was mental health issues, whether it was medical issues, whether it was work-related issues, whether it was who can work from home, who can't work from home, HR were literally on the front line. And it's really interesting for me to look back and see what we learned and how we were able to help businesses and how businesses wanted us to help, how they called upon us to help. That's also really interesting because, again, that's our reputation. Our reputation in 2020, not doing so well. We're really hated right now as HR, and I think there's reasons for that. But back in 2020, we weren't doing so well. HR was the enemy. I wrote a book in 2015 saying HR is an unnecessary evil. And that's still the case in COVID. Anyway, let's have a look at COVID. COVID comes in March, April, whenever it was, lockdown. Boris Johnson tells the country that we're on lockdown. And we suddenly start having to use all of these skills, which was instantly, literally overnight, we had to apply individual tests, individual criteria to situations that we weren't ready to cope with. So we had to look at whether people were vulnerable. We had to look at whether they were medically being told they had to stay at home. We're having to look at needs of a business. We were having to look at those who were in a caring responsibility, those who had to travel. Were they going to come into contact with more people? Was that fair to make them do that? Was a health and safety issue? We've never dealt with health and safety issues before in HR. That's not our remit. That's not really what we're up to. We had to look at all these things and we had to make all these decisions and all these criteria. And that's exactly what in 2010, when the Equality Act came in, that's exactly what I believe it was intended to do. And that's what we're saying are those people with a growth mindset in HR. It was the opposite of a fixed mindset. We had all these rules. We had to apply them on an individual basis. And it was the first time ever that we were forced to do that. But I think those are the rules that should have been in place in the first place. So what happened was employers had their reaction. They understood sort of what needed to go on. But the really interesting thing about it was that half of the employees, especially those that we dealt with, so we deal with a lot of SMEs, small, medium enterprises, and that's what this country is based on, right? And 99% of business in the UK is based on small, medium enterprises. And half of the employees that we deal with, literally the first people that they furloughed was the HR professionals. So what they're saying is, in this time of great crisis, in this time of great need of more mental health issues than ever before, more employee issues, people are more stressed and anxious and they need money, and the furlough issue, we're helping with all of that, and policies and procedures and understanding fairness. And we knew there was going to be claims and claims and claims and claims from this. The tribunals have been, stacked out ever since. But in that time of great crisis, when the very obvious, the person who can be there and to help us was literally the first person that was furloughed. So what does that tell us about HR? But in many ways, I'm not blaming the employer for doing that, because the employers know that HR weren't equipped to deal with it. The reason that we weren't equipped to deal with it was because we've had this fixed mindset from day one, especially since when things were starting to change with the Equality Act, that actually we didn't have the skill set, we didn't have the knowledge, we didn't have the understanding to apply the situation. So therefore, we just got in the way. What I'm saying is right now inside of HR is that those with a fixed mindset, so I'm describing people who, I got my qualification 10 years ago and I'm fine. I am happy to follow the process of going through the process. So whenever there's a disciplinary or a grievance, the first thing we do, let's go to the cupboard, get out the policy, let's look at what it do. And even when it doesn't make sense, we have to follow it. We have to do what it, have to follow it line by line. Even when common sense has to go out the window and it doesn't apply to the situation, that's what the policy says, so that's what we have to do. And those people who want to cut corners, so it's templates. I can't think for myself, therefore I need a template. That's what I'm calling fixed mindset. The people are saying, I'm really happy where I am right now. I've got my qualifications done. I don't understand that HR is a changing profession and everything's changing every single day. And it's a growth mindset because we are learning new things about new cases, about new situations, about new employee issues, about health issues, about mental health, about changing cultures. That's a growth mindset where we're learning and we're appreciating all this. What I'm saying is that has been forced upon us by COVID, but it's proven to us that employers need us to have a growth mindset, and that those who do have a fixed mindset, those are the ones who are being left behind. Those are the ones who don't understand what HR is. They have no place in new HR. They are broken. They're a symptom of the fact that HR is broken. But the employers are starting to notice this. The employers are starting to say, you're not good in a process. You are basically doing what we call administrivia. You are doing the admin part of HR, which basically you're being overpaid for. And this, I believe, is what COVID has taught us. We're now a few years on, we're 4 years on from COVID. And yet the same situation is existing where so many processors have got this mindset that it's fine to be fixed, have a fixed mindset, not want to learn, not want to grow, not want to understand the world around them, not want to understand the changes. Even since COVID, I'm not limiting this to COVID. Since COVID, there has been so many issues that's been thrown our way with, I keep mentioning this on here, with quiet quitting and the great resignation and more mental health issues than ever before. And even working from home is a brand new concept for us that we have to apply to different people in different ways. Look at the protected characteristics that we've got. Look at the reasonable adjustments now that we're having to more occupational health issues than ever before. Everybody is dysfunctional inside of the workplace in their own way. And this is all being left at HR's doorstep. This is all something that we have to be dealing with. And you can't possibly do this with a fixed mindset. And that is what we're talking about. That is what we're bringing to you. That is why HR needs to change. I would love you today, during your day, to start thinking about things with an open mind. Start thinking about things being individual. Forget about processes. Forget about that's the way we've always done it. Forget about, I did that last year. That's what I've got to do this year. Approach everything with a brand new mindset. Think about the person. Make sure that everything you're doing is employee-centric. Put them first. I'm not saying that you have to protect the employee over the employer. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you have to consider everything. You have to put the employee first, and you have to have a growth mindset. Have a great day. Enjoy your HRing.